Hello and welcome to episode
14
of the Waffle Hour Podcast.
Hello, listeners.
I am Giger.
I'm Ben.
That was the intro. We did it.
Yeah, I just want to jump into it, if
Cool.
I'm being honest. So, both of us have things we want to talk about.
Yes.
And for me, last week, I was ready to talk about it then, but we're having a really good conversation with Will, so I felt like I can wait on it. I was nearly finished with The Legend of Korra TV series, and
You literally finished or leave finished with one season?
I was nearly completely finished.
Okay, I misunderstood then.
I actually did finish it after we were done recording.
Cool.
And I've been stewing on my thoughts about it this entire time. And even if I don't talk about everything, I think I might just talk about like the first 2 seasons, but I want to get this out there because the show
Well then you go right now and then I'll talk about my thing after.
Okay. Well, Legend of Korra, I think, is a very good show.
Okay.
I think it's a very, very frustrating show, too.
That's what I believed.
It really frustrated me in a way I didn't anticipate. So, I know Legend of Korra is already, like, kind of a controversial show. A lot of, like, Avatar Last Airbender fans didn't like it. And I know that it had a lot of, like, development problems where, like, the last 2 seasons were, like, online and stuff like that because they kept on having their time slot shifted, and that was the only way they could get their stuff out there, and that's tragic.
Before you continue, I would like to quickly explain my personal experience of the show.
Yeah.
Just so that I can get that out there and you can, like, base your discussion off of that. I watched the first season as it was coming out.
Okay.
I watched it online because I couldn't watch it on cable. We didn't have it. And I hated the first season, and I believe that's a general consensus, except sometimes it isn't. It's a weird thing. I've noticed a lot of people are really, like, hating or loving the first one. That's essentially my entire experience. After the first season, I decided to, like, throw the show away.
Fair enough.
And I haven't watched it since, even though I love Last Airbender, because I've heard that, like, it doesn't really get that much better.
Okay. I do think it gets better than the first season. Because I'm going to just say outright, I think the first season was by far the worst, and it was definitely my least favorite.
Okay.
Of any of the seasons. Though every season kind of varies wildly, which is why it's harder to judge. For instance, like, the second season was actually my favorite of them, but for most people, that seems to be considered the worst one.
Okay.
If it's not the first one, then it's the second one. They're usually just kind of grouped together as the bad half of the show. And for me, like, there was enough cool ideas in the second season that, regardless of, like, the other stuff, the stuff that I know people hate about it, I enjoyed it the most. So anyway, like I said, I disliked it for a reason I didn't really anticipate. I had imagined when I was going in, that I was actually just going to like the show, and that I was going to just feel that the things that most people disliked about it were overblown. Because I assume that, like, a lot of people don't like Korra as a character, which I think is completely unfair.
I didn't end up liking her from the first season, but I think that has to do with the first season not characterizing her that well.
Well, she definitely goes through a significant arc, and I would say that arc is predictable from the first season, as how she begins, and how she ends up ending. And I think she was a very well-written character. She was probably my favorite part of the entire show, period. Her actual story was really, really good. The one that focused on her specifically. Minus the romance triangle. That was awful, and I hated it, and everybody hates it. For good reason. It was just terrible, and I'm really glad that kind of just drops off after the first season as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was weird.
The other things that I assume people didn't really like about Avatar, Legend of Korra. So the other thing that I assume people dislike about Korra is just that it's very different from Avatar. It focuses a lot on, like, the world building rather than the main storyline. Every single season is a different story arc with, like, a different villain. Excuse me. It's a different villain, and I'm guessing a lot of people just didn't like the direction it took the universe and stuff like that. I'm, like, neutral on it. Whenever I go on about how good world building doesn't equate good storytelling, this is, like, a pretty picture-perfect example of that, where I think the world building is kind of neat. I think they put, had some cool ideas there. None of it improves the story whatsoever. Sometimes it really does take away from it. Yeah. I don't know what else to say except I probably should just go into why the show frustrated me. Maybe even doing it season by season.
Feel free.
Alright, so the thing I did not anticipate going into the show was how political it ended up being.
Oh, okay.
Like, really, really political. Like, the premise, like I said, every single season is a different story arc with a different villain, but also every single season kind of, like, deconstructs a different political ideology and, like, comes to terms with it, I guess you'd say.
Sure.
So, like, there's socialism in the first season, capitalism, anarchy in the third season, and fascism in the fourth season.
Okay.
And the problem with that, because this is normally, like, my wheelhouse, the problem with it is that the writers, I feel like they might have had good intentions, but they don't know anything about what the fuck they're talking about. And I don't know why they would want to do this if they aren't educated on the subjects that they're writing their stories around. And that comes out, I feel, the most clearly in the first season, which is about communism.
Okay.
And socialism. And it is a very, very, very muddy metaphor, which, you know, goes past the points of inaccuracies and into the points of, this is offensive.
Mm-hmm.
So, the first season is the one you watched. Do you remember it?
Okay. I'll try to detail what I recall. I recall the first episode, they discover the Avatar, she ends up going to the city, she joins the tournament with the two boy people, they do that thing, then eventually she becomes like part of the security force, they try to get a Mon, it does the platinum thing, because platinum's so pure, I remember that, and I recall the ending of the first season, I think.
You think?
I'm going to spoil it now, because we're probably going to spoil the whole thing.
Oh, I'm going to spoil the whole series of Korra.
I will spoil what I believe.
People who are planning on watching Korra, definitely do that before I talk about it. A lot of the people who hated Korra originally have found a new love of it in rewatching the show on Netflix now as, you know, more mature adults. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I think a lot of people, they might have hated Korra before, like the character, but I think now that they're older, they can appreciate what they were doing a little bit better and like her, and that's one of the reasons they like the show. And if you don't care about thinking about political ideologies in children's cartoons, then none of this is going to matter to you. Don't worry about it. You're going to like the show just fine. Maybe not the first 2 seasons, but you'll probably end up liking it, the whole show overall. So,
okay.
You're going to say the spoilers now.
Okay. What I'm pretty sure happens at the end is that Amon is like the Water Tribe Council member's brother.
Yeah.
And then they like leave on a boat, but the Water Tribe council member decides to just like commit suicide by blowing up the engine.
Him.
Okay, that was the ending. I wasn't 100% sure if that was the ending of that season or if that was something else that I just like saw online.
Yeah, so you remember a lot of the details of the world building and stuff like that, but you didn't probably think about the political implications.
Oh no, not even. I didn't even know that was a thing at the time because I knew what socialism was, I guess, when it was coming out.
Yeah,
but on a vague note.
So first things first is obviously nowadays in the year 2020 when we're recording this, socialism is a lot more popular than it used to be whenever Avatar came out.
Sure.
So I don't want to take this as you're saying socialism's bad, therefore you're bad, because that's not what the problem is. Mm-hmm. The problem is they don't understand socialism enough to critique it, and yet they do.
It's like if I were to critique books.
Yeah. So the bad guys, their motivation is they're called the Equalist, and they are non-benders. And what they want is to be equal to the benders, whatever the hell that means. Sure. It's not actually shown in which ways that they're being discriminated against in the show, but you can it's implied that there is something going on, because the Equalists have a huge following, like a giant underground movement, way bigger than anyone imagined, first of all. And there's little things like the council is made entirely of benders, so they don't really have representation in government, and you see non-benders being harassed by crime syndicates that are made up of benders, but also by the cops, who are all benders.
Sokka.
Yeah, Sokka is not even, factored into this, that way of thinking.
Hate that so much.
But yeah, it's easy to imagine that, especially, when they go to these equalist rallies, the imagery is very, very clear. They're very clearly referencing, like, communist propaganda posters and stuff like that.
Sure.
And the bad guy, he is, has the ability to take people's bending away, so that's what he wants to do, is make everyone equal by, kidnapping all the benders, forcibly taking their powers away, and just eliminating bending. And, as a metaphor for socialism or communism or whatever it is, it's not a very good one.
I was going to point out a really large hole in that little thing you just said. The big one being that the entire world, as it stands, functions on the backs of benders.
Yeah.
So removing the ability to bend would basically, like, fuck over every concept that they have built up to this point.
Yes, and there's lots of, like, technologies that don't exist, but they replicate through bending. Like, they show how the city gets its power supplies. They've got firebenders bending lightning inside, like, a power plant. And that's, like, where electricity comes from, which is absurd. But it also goes into that, like, that non-bending, benders just have more opportunities for, like, career advancement and finding a good-paying job and stuff like that. I mean, hell, the two of the main characters, Mako and Bolin, they were, like, homeless orphans, but they managed to become, like, sports stars, or athletes, pro athletes, because they're able to bend and they, do the pro-bending thing.
How does one bend earth and the other bend fire?
They have mixed race parents.
Oh, okay.
That's my assumption anyway. Because I'm going to be honest, it was never clear to me from watching The Last Airbender if bending was something that anybody could do that just needed to be taught, or if it was a genetic thing. It didn't matter to me.
Yeah.
But now in Korra, it firmly establishes it's a genetic thing. Some people can bend, other people can't bend. If your mom was an earthbender, you can become an earthbender. If your dad was a firebender, then you can become a firebender, or vice versa. For instance, Tenzin is Aang's, like, youngest son.
Yeah.
And his oldest son can't bend at all, and his middle child, his daughter, is a waterbender, like Katara. So that's how it works in that universe.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's fine. Anyway, so the point is that obviously the metaphor doesn't work because the socialists don't want to kidnap, the rich people and destroy their money so that they don't have money anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They want to take their money and they want to redistribute it so that everything is more fair.
Yeah.
And you can't do that with bending.
No.
So the metaphor breaks. And that's when a lot of people will be like, well, maybe they're not trying to be a metaphor for communism. I'm like, I think, all of the background image details and all the clear, references to those things make it clear that they are referencing communism.
Was it possible that maybe they referenced communism as a result of, like the rest of it? Like, it wasn't necessarily that they went out to do that, but then, like, it became clear as they were doing it that this was a reference, as they were writing everything, this kind of was a reference to it, so they did it anyway?
Maybe, it was the first season. I guess maybe for the later seasons they decided to keep this bad, political studies theme going.
Sure.
But I don't know. It's a world-bending kind of issue. Or not world-bending, a world-building kind of issue. They're like, what's something that could happen in our world? Well, maybe the benders don't like, or the non-benders don't like the benders because they're jealous of their bending.
See, I'm, like, used to that concept just because of, like, X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole thing about X-Men. It's one of the stupidest arguments.
Yeah, well, it wasn't in a thing in the original Avatar. It's just a thing that they came up with for this show. And, like, it makes sense, and then they framed it as a socialism thing, and then it starts getting really stupid from there.
Mm-hmm.
So, the thing is that bending is not equivalent to wealth. Wealth is something that, it's not a part of your identity.
No.
It's not something you're just born with. I guess people are born into wealth, but it can be taken away, it can be redistributed. That's not how bending works. So...
Would it be a better representation of that if, like, you could take bending away from someone and give it to someone else?
I guess, but the way it is in the show, it doesn't read to me like that. It reads to me more like social advantages and disadvantages based on race.
Yeah.
In the way that...
That's the way I was, like, imagining it when you were explaining it, that it's, like, basically the racist comment again.
Exactly. The non-benders are a lot like black people in that they have less representation in government, that they have to deal with more crime, they have to deal with harassment from the police, that they have less opportunities for job opportunities, for career advancement. You know, they just have a worse time in society because of systemized racism. And that's exactly how it works in the show with the non-benders. But then you remember, oh wait, these are the bad guys, like, definitively?
Yeah.
And then that's when the metaphor becomes offensive. It's like, yeah, I really wish she didn't do this. Again, that's probably not what they were intending, but that is exactly how it maps one-to-one in the real world. And I think that any kid watching this show sees the equalists and they hear what the equalists want. You know, they want the benders and the non-benders to be equal, and you're like, well, that's not a bad thing. You can't, like, say they're bad guys, but they're only ever framed as bad guys.
That's a weird way to do it.
And then it gets worse from there.
Oh.
So the one council member, you mentioned him before, he's actually the leader of the equalists' secret brother.
Yeah.
So in response to the equalist movement getting bigger and bigger, he proposes laws to ban equalists, to arrest them, to arrest anyone that's associated with them, to put curfews on all non-benders, to create security task force to take out possible uprising and stuff. And this is where all of this gets, again, you know, thinking about the actual real-world political implications, shit gets really fucking dark.
Yeah.
Because what he's talking about are, you know, textbook fascism.
Yeah, like literally stopping conversation forcibly, stopping groups forcibly.
There is a peaceful protest of the non-benders, and they're out past their curfew, so the police are arresting them. And, you know, Korra and her friends show up and they try to stop this, and they wind up getting attacked by the police. And it's like, wow, this kind of, you know, echoes what's going on with modern peaceful protests around these kinds of things. And this is when I thought maybe the show was going to do something clever. See, they didn't reveal who the councilman and who the leader of the Equalists were yet.
No.
I thought they were going to just be the same person. I thought that the entire idea was that he formed the Equalist group specifically to make the non-benders act out, and then he could then use that as an excuse to tyrannically, fight against them and have a reason to, like, lock them up, and it was going to be, like, a whole fascist thing.
Yeah, a very clever way of doing that.
That's not what they did. Instead, it turns out he's his own problem. They solve him. There's still the other bad guys, the actual equalists. Turns out that guy is twin brothers because, you know, to the writers, socialism and fascism is, you know, basically the same after all. Horseshoe theory. They're twins. Who would have thought? Which, again, very, very fucking wrong and offensive idea, but a lot of people would have believed that if they only knew about this from, like, their high school lessons on the subject that they don't remember and are now pulling from to write their children's TV show.
Okay. So that was season 1.
Yeah. You get the idea. Like, there's lots of issues there. I don't like what they were implying with the bad guys and the good guys. I don't like that at the end of the thing, they turn out that the leader of the Equalist, he's a bender himself, because the worst thing that a communist can be is secretly a capitalist. And they have him, he escapes but winds up getting killed anyway, and then the Equalist thing is just forgotten about. The Equalists don't get any, you know, extra rights, they don't fix any of their problems. They killed their leader, so now they just go back to being oppressed, I guess. And that really, really doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, I don't think it would sit well with me either.
And like I said, like, as a metaphor for whether it's socialism or racial politics,
kind of falls apart.
It seems like
both.
It's supporting the wrong side.
On both fronts, yeah.
And all of this could have been avoided by just not making the story about that. Like, I don't know why they thought this was a good idea. Because, like I said, I don't think they're trying to accidentally do a racism.
Sure.
I think that just kind of happened.
Maybe the idea at the time was like they didn't go into the politics of Airbender at all, basically. Beyond like Ba Sing Se.
Yeah, Ba Sing Se had like some stuff with like the secret police, and there was like kind of a general message, a general anti-imperialism, anti-colonialism thing.
Yeah,
in Last Airbender, because that was like the Firebenders didn't have any like motive.
No,
they were just like, oh, we're rich and powerful. Let's start attacking other countries now because we can.
Even like with the explanation.
Yeah, even with the explanation, it actually like felt even less justified than ever. But whatever, it didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I'm going to be honest, like, one of the first things I couldn't help but notice is that Republic City, the setting of the of Legend of Korra, that was a Fire Nation colony that was annexed by the Avatar, by Avatar Aang, and turned into a
neutral
whatever. And I'm like, so the whole anti-colonial message you had in the first series, you're kind of going back on it now, like as the very first scene of the show. That doesn't seem like good. Seems like you're kind of missing some of the points of the original series and what people liked about it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, so season 2. I liked season 2 a lot because season 2 is all about the spirit world and spirits and weird magic stuff, and I just like that stuff. It was my favorite part of the first series, and it wasn't in very many episodes. It's like 3 of them total.
It was really disappointing when they didn't do more with the Face Stealer. I guess they did in the comics, but even still.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite episodes. It's not just that it was the finale of the first book, but that particular part of it was just so cool to me. And I think my favorite episode is the one where they go to the library and they meet that big owl spirit just because that stuff's cool. You know? And this season's all about that stuff. It's also... It had the weakest villain.
Mm-hmm.
So the plot of the second season, which you haven't seen at all, is that the leader of the Northern Water Tribe is Korra's uncle.
Okay.
And the Northern Water Tribe are basically in charge of the Southern Water Tribe, but they've got like kind of a pseudo-independence thing because the Southern Water Tribe is so far away.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if Korra's dad is supposed to be in charge of the Southern Water Tribe or if he's just an important member of the community there. It's never actually clear. But he doesn't like the Southern Water Tribe, and he doesn't like most of the other countries because he feels that they've forgotten the importance of recognizing the spirits and stuff like that, because apparently he's a very spiritual dude, and it's a very religious thing. And he enlists Korra to, like, help him tame angry spirits by going to the the South Pole, where there's apparently a portal, and, like, opening it up and, like, clearing out the bad energy or whatever, like, something like that. And he's framed as being, like, a good guy, except the musical tones and his way of talking makes it obvious that he's a bad guy.
Is this Korra's dad, or...?
This is Korra's uncle.
Okay, Korra's uncle.
Sorry. Korra's dad is just a good character, except she's really angry at him for, like, the first half of the season, so it's Korra being, you know, kind of annoying and belligerent and stuff like that. So yeah. The whole season is about him wanting to open up the spirit portals, and they go into the origin of the Avatar, which apparently the first Avatar way back in a time so long ago that it resembles more of a fantasy than the reality that they exist in.
Sure.
Like, apparently, like, humans used to live on top of lion turtles in, like, these contained cities, and that they knew that there was an outside world of, like, untamed spirit wilds, but they didn't know that there was other cities with other humans living in them.
Mm-hmm.
And the first Avatar was a bender who got his gift of fire from the lion turtle, which is where all the benders got them, and kind of stole it and used it to fight against an oppressive government, and then got banned from his city, and then went wandering the wilds and finding out about all of the other cities and lion turtles and styles of bending.
Okay.
And eventually he comes across a light spirit and dark spirit, and he splits the two apart because they're fighting. And it turns out that the dark spirit is bad, and the light spirit needs to stop him, or else the dark spirit will do bad stuff. So he combines with the light spirit, and that gives him the power to control all 4 elements. And that's the Avatar part of the name Avatar, is him being a vessel for, like, this light spirit. I don't know if I did the story very justice. I actually liked these episodes a lot.
I don't know. I don't think you might have, because everything you just described, I hate.
It sounds a bit dumb.
I don't know why.
I think a lot of people, when they watched it, probably hated it too. But I really liked how it had, like, this shifted art style. I really liked the high fantasy concepts of, like, this people living inside cities on the top of giant turtles.
So, like, yeah, on the basis of those things, that's all cool. I like the idea of the turtles. Like, that's kind of like, there's an anime called Children of the Whales on Netflix. That's a similar concept. Everyone lives in giant mud whales. I'm not going to explain it more into that.
That's fine.
And that's it's a cool idea. I think the problem is it doesn't seem to match my envisionment of Avatar.
Yeah.
And that might be me, but given that I'm not the only one, I feel like I would hate it. I would hate at least the story, maybe not the concepts within the show, the season.
I think the whole story eventually, like, all kind of works within the universe and the context.
Sure.
Like, because it doesn't necessarily contradict certain things that they established in the show, like, the turtles are what gives them their bendings, but they don't really know how to use them in the same way that they were taught by dragons and sky bison and stuff like that. And all the people eventually move out of the cities, and all the spirits go to their own world, and eventually the world starts to resemble what would eventually be, in The Last Airbender. But this is so long ago, like I said, that it doesn't resemble any sort of reality that makes sense outside of a fairy tale. And I liked all this stuff.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I liked this season a lot, mostly because of that stuff. I also liked the side plots in it. Like, the side plot in the first season was all about that love triangle between Korra, Mako, and Dasami, and a little bit of Bolin, because Bolin has a crush on Korra. Korra likes Mako. Mako likes Asami, but he also likes Korra, and it's like, I hate all of this. Everyone hates this. No one likes this. Well, Korra and Mako just fight the entire time, and then they break up at the end of the season. It's great. Bolin, who I didn't really care about in the first season at all, he has two separate and very, very funny story arcs. The first one is where he starts dating Korra's cousin. So Korra's cousins are like these twins that are like really creepy, like in that twinsy kind of way.
I think I've seen them.
And her, the one cousin is voiced by Aubrey Plaza, and Bolin asks her out on a date, and she immediately accepts, and then becomes this horrible, like, domineering girlfriend who, like, controls every aspect of his life and is, like, really, like, cold and nasty to him, and it's really fucking funny. I love it. And then he's trying to figure out how to break up with her without her, like
killing him?
Yeah. Or killing herself, or killing both of themselves. And he asks Mako for help, and Mako's fucking useless, because that's what Mako is in the entire series. He never gets any better. He's the worst character by far.
Which one is Mako?
He's the one that Korra had a crush on.
Is he the thin one or the big one?
The thin one.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that entire story arc was hilarious. But then, there's a second subplot that Bolin gets involved in. He becomes the world's first movie star.
Oh.
Because this one guy invents movies, and he uses it to make a anti-North Pole propaganda, and has Bolin star as Nut Tuck of the North, who is the hero of the Southern Water Tribe fighting against their northern oppressors. And, again, loved it. I just loved every little bit about that. But, yeah, the season was undeniably the dumbest. So it turns out that the bad guy, he wanted to open up the spirit portals because what he really wanted to do was release that dark spirit who was beaten by the first Avatar way back when, and then fuse with that spirit so he can become a dark Avatar, and it ends with them being giant spirit versions of themselves battling in front of Republic City.
Oh.
Yeah. Pretty dumb. I didn't care.
I would hope.
It didn't ruin the whole season for me, but I imagine it definitely could for a lot of people. There's a reason why I think this is most people's least favorite season.
I'd probably ruin it for me at least a little bit.
So, on the politics side of things, this is the other reason I liked it. It was the least political out of all of them.
Oh, okay, cool.
Mostly because the villain, he didn't really have any political ideology that makes any sense. Like, I've seen lots of people, like, write essays and stuff about it. Like, he's supposed to be, a theocratist, or something like that, because he's all in the religion. I'm like, I don't really know about that. And then another one said that he's supposed to be, like, an environmentalist. because spirits are synonymous with nature and all this other stuff, and I'm like, actually, this kind of makes sense, but at the same time, I don't think that's what the writers were going for.
Sure.
So, my personal theory is that if the writers were going for anything, they just fucked it up so bad that it doesn't matter.
I don't like the sound of these writers so far.
No, a lot of people complain about these two guys, because I guess there was like 3 people who wrote Last Airbender, and like the main guy is one who left, and these are the 2 guys that did Legend of Korra. And everyone just bitches about them all the time. And I don't know if that's 100% fair, but I also think it's kind of fair.
It's a little bit fair.
Because all the problems tend to do with the writing, especially when it comes to writing the political stuff. So anyway, yeah, the main villain doesn't have like a big political ideology that we can deconstruct, but there is a character in this season that's introduced that does, and that's Varric. So Varric is like this rich genius inventor, corporation owner. He's the one who invents the movies and makes Bolin his movie star.
Okay.
And he is a major character in this story. He becomes an ongoing character through the series, but he's really important in this season in particular.
Okay.
And he's a capitalist, obviously.
Sure.
And he's also the funniest character in the show, probably. Okay. I don't know if the funniest, but he's pretty goddamn funny. He's just a ridiculous person. He's very, very delusional. He's very belligerent. He's got this assistant named Julie that he always orders around and has her do, like, ridiculous stuff, and she's attached to him at the hip and can't seem to get away with him. Like, he literally gets put in prison, and she's in prison with him. And that's funny.
Yeah, that's kind of funny.
But, Varric, I like the character, but again, this is very, very frustrating because he is the secondary villain of this season. The season is too long, okay? They probably could have told the story they wanted to tell a lot shorter, but there's a lot of time being wasted in the middle because Varric is trying to build up the tensions between the northern and southern water tribes and create a civil war so that he can profit off of selling weapons and supplies to both sides, basically, because he is a piece of shit capitalist.
I guess, yeah.
And he does this by basically doing terrorism. He, like, destroys some stuff, he scares people, he blows up some buildings and stuff like that. He makes these propaganda films against the northern tribe, and he fakes a lot of stuff that from either side fighting one another in order to make these things go up. And basically everything he does is the same thing the Equalists did in the first season. And he gets caught. He gets put in prison. He tries to frame one of them for being behind it all, but that winds up, becoming uncovered that it actually was him. And he goes to jail. And then at the end of the season, he gets released. Or he gets, like, a hole gets blown in the wall and he escapes.
Oh, okay.
And then becomes a recurring character in the rest of the series.
That's weird.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's all played up for laughs and stuff. Like, even though he's doing the same stuff as the bad guy in the first season, none of this is being framed as being... Because the first season, if you remember, Amon was portrayed as, like, a horrifying monster.
Yeah, like,
Korra
terrifying.
literally has, like, nightmares about him and shit like that. Whereas Varric is a funny dude. He's hilarious. He's Bolin's friend.
This is weird.
And yeah, again, this, like, a socialism versus capitalism thing, it's fine if you prefer capitalism.
Yeah, if you fundamentally understand socialism and capitalism, I don't know.
Even if you don't, and you don't understand them, and you just do the capitalism, you just think capitalists are the good guys and socialists are the bad guys, and
Sure.
it's black and white. The thing is that he was doing bad stuff. He was doing really
definitely.
bad stuff, but it didn't matter. He was never framed as, like, the bad guy. He was always framed as, like, he's revealed to be the bad guy, and that's, like, a thing, but, I mean...
But you...
Spoiler alert, the very last episode of the series, like, one of the things that happens, like, in the epilogue ending is his wedding. And they're like, it's a big thing, everyone's, like, attending his wedding, because that's how much of, like, a protagonist he becomes by the end of the series. And yeah.
So our viewers can't see this, but my face right now is that of just utter bewilderment.
It's really frustrating. And I like Varric. He's funny. He's a funny character. But he's very obviously, like, the political representation of capitalism. He is a super smart inventor capitalist. He's like Ford or Edison or Porsche or Carnegie. And,
Sure.
You know, fucking Elon Musk, Tony Stark, you know?
Sure.
He's that guy. And even though they demonstrate exactly all the ways that capitalism can be bad, they don't treat it like it's a bad thing.
I don't understand.
And it's very frustrating that that's the case.
Okay.
There's another character. He was in the first season. I didn't mention him. Asami's father.
Yes, him.
He's the guy who invented the car or whatever in that series. He is very obviously meant to be a reference to Ford.
Yeah.
You know? So it turns out that he's a bad guy. He was with the Equalists, and he was making robots for them or something like that.
Yeah, the platinum robots.
So do you know what Ford did in real life? That
Didn't he, like, fund...
the Nazi Party.
He funded the Nazis? Okay.
Yeah, the Nazi Party. Lots of capitalists did back in the day because, well, the Nazis were against the socialists, and the socialists were the ones that wanted to bring down the capitalists and take their money and redistribute it to the populace.
Yeah.
So they funded the Nazis to stop the socialists, which is why the Nazis started off by attacking socialists.
Okay.
And, like, okay, again, I think you guys are mixing up your metaphors and ideas. This character who is meant to be Ford is working with the communists when he really should be working with the Nazis, stopping the communists.
Yeah. Well...
Either way, like...
See, the problem is that it's not a direct metaphor.
It's not a direct... Well, as I said, like, it is not perfect. It's why I can't, like, come down on these guys, because they get stuff... It's not that they say bad things.
Intentionally.
They clearly get stuff wrong and end up saying bad things by accident.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it gets frustrating. So, if you want, I can continue and talk about the third and fourth season, which everyone admits is just way, way better than the first two
definitely.
seasons.
That's what I've been told to understand.
Or I could save that for the next podcast when we record next week, if you don't feel like I've got time, because I can keep going.
I feel like if I let you talk, we could go the whole episode, and I don't really want to do that.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of, because I think I could. Let me finish up by talking about more things I did like about the show. Like I said, I liked Korra, the character, a lot. The side characters I didn't care for. Mako especially I think is terrible, but I think that's the consensus. Nobody really likes Mako. Bolin really grew on me. He's the brother. And
yeah.
Asami, she's the other point of the love triangle, and you probably already know this, everybody probably already knows this, but at the very, very end of the series, it's implied that Korra and Asami start getting in a relationship with one another, which is cool.
Yeah.
But she is not a very fleshed out character in the whole series.
That's actually the biggest thing I've heard about that element, is that they didn't mind that people what I've read, I don't remember where it was like years ago now, but people didn't mind that Korra ended up with her. It was that
people loved it, actually.
The issue was that people didn't like that Korra ended up with like a blank slate that no one knew, and like, what's the point even at that stage?
Well, so even though there's 4 seasons of Korra, there's less episodes overall because every single season only has like 12, like 10 to 12, 13 episodes, and they've got a lot of characters, especially by the end of the show, and that gets spread thin, you know. And Asami, they don't have like the same dynamic that they had in The Last Airbender. In The Last Airbender, you had that core group of characters that you know really, really well, and you know the relationships between all of them really, really well, and you just love all of them, and you love their relationships with one another. Whereas...
My mother used to love relationships.
Oh, yeah?
Tickle's necklace.
Oh, yeah. My mother. Before the Fire Nation killed her.
Sorry.
Zuko's just like, when are you gonna just let me live this down? I'm sorry, I'm trying to help. Anyway.
So the core relationships.
There's very huge parts of this series, though, where the 4 characters, the new Team Avatar, just aren't even around one another. Because there's just too much going on. It's not as focused on the characters. And I feel like there's a lot of characters you could just erase from the series and it would just be better off. The show is less funny than The Last Airbender is overall. It is more serious. The art style is shifted to be a little bit more action-oriented. The characters are all older.
See, I think that might have been a good idea if they'd waited like 3 or more years until after Avatar.
Did it come out right after Last Airbender? Because I don't remember.
I recall, it came out very shortly after. I'll look it up right now, because because I want to be sure.
I think the idea of a continuation but different is fine, you know?
That's fine, but if they'd waited a certain substantial amount of time for the audience of Last Airbender to grow up, then maybe the people would appreciate it more.
Yeah. I think it's in the second season. They introduce Aang's other two kids besides Tenzin. Tenzin being his youngest, the one who's actually an airbender. And I actually like them a lot, and I like the dynamic between the three, and I like the implication that Aang was kind of a bad dad.
Yeah.
Like, as great as Aang is as a person and as, you know, an avatar and helping society and stuff, being a father is a lot harder than people give it credit for. So I think a lot of people hate that legacy of that the show implies, but I personally enjoyed it. Toph, on the other hand, I think they did dirty.
Let me stop you. It was 2008 is when Last Airbender ended, and 2012 is when Korra started. So I guess they did give it a substantial amount of time.
Yeah,
I guess
I'd say they gave it enough time from there.
But yeah, I've actually heard that a lot, that Toph was just like the worst mom or something.
It's not that she was a bad mom. The reason I hate Toph in the new series is they made her a cop.
Oh.
And that, I feel, is completely against Toph's personality. I mean, the second season, like the entire time they spent in Ba Sing Se was just Toph complaining about rules and cities and society. Well, and then there's an entire episode in the third season where it's just her like scamming and robbing people for the fun of it. Well, and then she becomes the chief of police, the first ever chief of police, because they didn't have police forces until they had Republic City. And she becomes the first ever chief of police. And I'm like, no, fuck that.
I would counter.
I get it. She's grown up.
No, not what I'm going to counter.
Okay.
I think what they were going for is that she's the toughest.
Yeah, whatever.
And, like, I think that has its own problematic implications. They chose the toughest person to be the leader of the police force. But I think that's why they would do that. That makes sense to me. Beyond that, Sokka I would see as like the leader of the police force.
Sokka
that's the most logical.
As being like a councilman or something like that, or a judge, which I'm like, that makes sense.
I disagree.
You know who should have been? Suki.
Suki, yeah.
Suki should have been the leader of the police force.
Yeah, because she was the Kyoshi Warriors. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. That would make a lot more sense.
Also, they wouldn't be fundamentally going against Toph and making her a cop. And, I mean, they show in that first season exactly how police can be abused and turned into tools of fascist dictators.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the idea that Toph and her daughter, who is the new chief of police in the series, is an accessory to that, I just hate it. I hate that so much. Hate it.
Well, was she a bad mom?
Oh yeah, but
okay.
She was a bad mom in a way that I think makes a lot of sense. Also, I do like the implication that all of them are like bad parents except for Zuko. Zuko's the one who's like a really good dad.
I love the one thing I saw, but I don't know what season it was in, but I saw a thing with Zuko, and like he was talking to Korra, and she was like, I don't know how to get respect, and he's like, well, I didn't have respect until I got this dragon. Maybe you should get one of those.
I don't know. I don't think that was in the show.
I saw it. It was like a screenshot of the show, maybe.
I don't know. I'm trying to remember if he had a dragon or not. They might have shown him having a dragon. I just don't remember. Yeah. So I will continue my thoughts on seasons 3 and 4 later. Season 3. Oh, God, this is gonna be hard for me to talk about because they are way, way better. I think they actually frustrate me more, especially season 4. Season 4, I think, is my second least favorite season, even though everyone else says that it's the good one.
Actually, so what I heard is season 1 was the worst, season 2 was not great, season 3 was good, and then season 4 was, like, weird. That's what I understood.
I will tell you why. I think it was weird, and spoiler alert, it's going to have to do with politics. But, no, I think now it's your turn to talk about something.
Yes. Great.
So what did you want to tell me about that you've been so excited for?
So, okay, The Boys on Amazon Prime came out last year, and they very recently, like literally Friday.
Oh, the new season came out.
The whole new season, just the first 3 episodes.
Just 3? That's a little weird.
I think they're doing 3 every Friday because people were really annoyed with 1 episode a week.
I would be. I hate that.
Yeah, I hate it too. But hey, 3, that's literally 3 hours of content.
See, I would be fine if they just did an episode every day, or even 3 episodes every day, because I'm going to watch 3 episodes at a time regardless.
Sure.
But if I got to wait an entire week before I can watch it, the next 3 episodes, it'd just infuriate me.
I mean, there's that I don't want to go too deep into this, but there's that discussion of like, what if if they do it this way, that way people keep talking about it?
Yeah.
And
I mentioned that before when we were talking about The Mandalorian.
I get it, but also fuck you.
Yeah.
I want to watch my show. But here's the thing. Last year when I first watched The Boys, I liked it so much I read the entire comic.
Oh.
Like, literally start to finish, every part of it. I've read the whole thing. And they do a lot of things different. But I need to talk to you about the comic, because you haven't watched it.
I have not watched it, I have not read it.
And
I actually wasn't sure if I knew it was an adaptation of the comic.
You don't want to watch it, is the other important thing.
Yes, listeners, what he means is I just don't want to watch The Boys. I know that it's good. I just am not in the mood for that kind of thing.
And as a result, I'm going to spoil it, and do with that what you will.
That's fine. Listeners, watch The Boys, because he's about to spoil it, and you're going to get it spoiled if you don't watch it.
I'm going to spoil the comic first. I want to talk about the comic a little bit, because the comic is vastly different from the show.
How vastly different?
Well, it's important to note a few things. It's written by Garth Ennis.
Yeah.
You know Garth Ennis' work. You've read Preacher, or at least some of it?
Yes, I think Preacher was fine. I like some of his Hellblazer comics.
You know about that edge he's on, though?
Yes.
Okay. Well, he's on, Garth Ennis, for the listeners' benefit, he was really, really edgy in 2006. That doesn't sound like that long ago. And it wasn't. 14 years, not that long, really.
It feels pretty long.
It does feel long. But it's an important thing to note that he was really edgy back when Louis C.K. was saying the N-word on stage.
Mm-hmm.
That's an insane concept to me. And they took that guy, and they made a show out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So as you might be able to imagine, there are a lot of things in the comic that I would never anticipate be in the show. One of the things that I never expected was the character Stormfront. So, Stormfront is a new character in the second season.
Stormfront, like the Nazi Stormfront?
Yeah! Actually, let me get into it. So, the character in the comic is a Nazi.
Jesus Christ.
Purebred from the Nazis to be the king Nazi. And that character has been brought into the show as, a female who isn't, maybe not a Nazi, I don't know yet.
Is she still called Stormfront?
Yeah. And also she's, the feminist icon. You're kind of getting to the thing where it's getting really weird, right?
My eyebrows are going in separate directions. One's dropping to the floor, the other one's touching the ceiling. I'm like, what? So...
Yeah.
So what they say, you're saying they made a new character to replace the literal Nazi super soldier.
It's important to note, I don't actually know if she's Nazi yet.
You're saying that she very well could be just a reimagining of this character.
So, I want to delve a little deeper into it because it's a very different thing. But the very last episode, the 3rd episode of The Boys, she goes onto a rampage. Because the way that it's supposed to work is that Stormfront in the comic is the second most powerful superhero besides Homelander.
Mm-hmm.
He was the first soup ever created by the Nazis, and then the person who made the soups defected to America and created Homelander and all the other ones, and Homelander is the Superman. He's super powerful. In the show, Stormlander is also really powerful, and they show that in the 3rd episode by her, destroying an entire apartment building, killing some black people, and an Asian guy. And the thing is at the end of the 3rd episode, when she's killing the Asian guy, she's it's like a psychotic thing.
Mm-hmm.
She's telling him to open his eyes so that because she likes to see the light disappear. I haven't actually explained that the superheroes in this are supposed to be bastards.
Yeah, okay, let's roll that back. Listeners, who apparently are not planning on watching The Boys after we recommended it to them, here's Giger explaining what The Boys basically is so that you understand what he's talking about now.
Easiest, so I apologize for not doing this at the beginning.
That's fine.
The Boys is supposed to be the idea is that superheroes are real, but they're very corporatized, and they're like human beings, so they have like all this power, and that goes to their head, and they become like egotistical, horrible, awful monsters.
Yeah, complete and utter fucking psychopaths.
Some of the most vile beings you could think of, just because they're so much more powerful than the average person, they can do anything and get away with it. One of the ways they introduced you this in the first season of the show and of the first part of the comic is their version of the Flash, A-Train.
Mm-hmm.
He's going so fast down like a street that he atomizes a girl, and that's the main character's love interest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, he's just like, oh shit, my bad, and he leaves, and they don't even like do anything with it.
He literally just accidentally kills someone.
Mm-hmm. That's the kind of like caliber of hero we're dealing with. That's the kind of person. So back to Stormfront. She's doing all these terrible things. She's like telling the man to open his eyes because she likes to see the light disappear from them.
Is this the comic or the show we're talking about?
The show.
The show, because in the comic it's a guy.
Yes. And then at the very end, right before she kills him, she calls him a yellow bastard.
Because he's Asian.
Yes. And right there I was like, are they making her a Nazi? I really don't like that. Because, like, they show her as, like, the strong female of the Seven, which is their version of the Justice League.
Or Avengers, for you Marvel fans.
Sure. But, like, well, it's very clearly like a
specific
one-to-one.
Justice League 1-to-1.
Yeah. But, like, they show her as, like, the one dude comes in, he got a script for the movie they're going to make of them, and she's the one who points out, like, hey, all the women in your script are bimbos and idiots. Maybe you should rewrite that, because she's, like, the strong female, and she's, like, going against the corporate, but not really. And she's also maybe a Nazi also, possibly. I don't like that they've mixed those two things.
I mean, there's female white supremacists.
Yeah, but, like, it's weird.
Yeah, it is weird that they made... That's just a weird decision. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to verbalize it, but you know what I'm saying, because it's what you're saying.
This is why I never anticipated them to bring Stormfront into the show.
Yeah.
Because he's literally ultra-Nazi in the comic.
Mm-hmm.
I never expected that. I never expected him to make him a girl. I never expected her to be a very feminist icon.
A feminist icon in the universe of the show, or a feminist icon...
I guess that's how they're trying to portray her, at least to some degree.
She isn't just... she is a strong, independent lady villain hero who needs no man.
Well,
girl boss.
It's not like that. It's not that like
It's
specific.
not like live action Disney remake kind of.
It's literally like, you know, she's just like, she doesn't take shit. Mm-hmm. And it's clear when they do the scene with the movie that she's like not gonna take shit from this movie guy. And it's a big thing, and it's kind of like, it's kind of leading somewhere, you can kind of tell.
Well, none of the superheroes are supposed to be sympathetic, are they?
Well, there's a couple. Like, not all the superheroes are, you know, great. Like, one of them in the first season was done by Halo Joel Osment. Mm-hmm. And he can, like, I think he can either read thoughts or something. I don't actually remember that well. But his whole ability was he can touch you, he can read parts of your brain. And they use him in some capacity. And he's, like, not evil. He's just, like, kind of a bad dad, and he wants to be better at it.
And the idea that you got off of this character before you read the comics, the female Stormfront in the show, was that she wasn't necessarily meant to be one of the really bad characters. She was meant...
She's not actually... I read the comic before I read... She's in the second season only.
Oh, she's not in the first season?
No, she's introduced in the second. Because they have to fill the Seven, because some of them, like, die or move on. So, that's one character I never anticipated to see.
So, what are they trying to call feminist Nazis?
I don't think so. Like,
she's a feminazi.
This is the other thing. She isn't a Nazi confirmed yet. I've only seen 3 episodes.
I bet it's gonna be confirmed.
But considering the yellow comment, I would think
she's already a racist.
Yeah, it's so weird. But the other one that I never anticipate them to bring is called the Legend. Mm-hmm. The Legend, the reason they're not going to bring him in, I know for a fact they aren't, is because he's supposed to be the Stan Lee parody. And he's like, he's
like Stan Lee, the comic writer.
Yes. In the comic, he's literally the person who wrote the comics for the heroes so that they all became famous. In the show, they become famous for being heroes. They're on TV. They do like celebrity stuff, like interviews and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
In the comic,
someone literally wrote comics about real life people, and those became popular, and that helped make them famous.
And all of them are written by the Legend. He knows everything about the superheroes. He knows their dirty secrets. He's like their big thing. He smokes a cigar every time he's around, and he's like 3'8". He's like really short, but he's not gonna bring in just because Stanley's dead, and like it'd be so disrespectful because he's kind of an asshole. There's a whole storyline about how Huey, who's the main character, kills his son, and he's really happy about it because his son's a piece of shit.
Okay.
And his son was him and Maeve, who was one of the 7.
Mm-hmm.
It was a weird storyline. But he's never going to bring in. They mentioned a character I thought would never bring in, and I don't know if he's going to be in. His name is Tech Knight. I may have told you about Tech Knight in the past off podcast. Tech Knight is their version of Batman, essentially.
I could have guessed that from the name.
Sure. He's like one of the first storylines. He has an issue in the comic where he ends up in a threesome with himself, one of his former villains, and one of his former sidekicks. And as a result of this, for some reason, he now has a compulsion to put his dick in everything. And so
I don't understand.
I don't understand either. It's not explained really well.
So he's
literally any hole's a goal.
Any hole.
Mm-hmm. Including like a cat. He tries to bang a cat. He goes to a therapist to try and really work these issues out. The therapist leaves the room. He tries to fuck the cat, and then he also puts his dick in the therapist's coffee.
That sounds painful.
Garth Ennis is a weird writer.
Yeah, I don't remember Preacher being this weird.
Really?
Preacher was pretty weird, but wasn't like that.
Didn't Preacher have a part where a mentally ill person murdered a midget?
Maybe, I don't remember. It was probably just a thing that happened.
But yeah, that's one element.
I doubt it was like a plot point, is what I'm saying.
Sorry, little person, I apologize.
Yeah.
I did it with instinctively. It was my own fault.
It's really annoying because the M word, I guess we'll call it, was the accepted thing for most of our lives, and little person, I don't know. I don't know any little people, so I don't know. It feels to me like
more
little people
demeaning.
would be more demeaning.
Yeah, because you're literally defining them as like a smaller person.
If it were me, I'd prefer being called a dwarf, and I've heard a lot of little people do prefer that.
So whatever. Apologies. My bad. We don't know enough little people to be able to make this call.
Yeah, I'm too dumb.
Yeah. So that's a thing with Tech Knight. The other one was Love Sausage.
Is that the character's name?
Yeah, well, that's a superhero name. He's actually one I really want to be in the show, but probably won't. In the comic, as opposed to the show, in the comic, they are all the main boys. They actually get a version of Compound V, which is what gives you superpowers.
Uh-huh.
And it's only like super strength, super endurance, stuff like that, so it's not like crazy. But in the show, that doesn't happen, which is weird. But one of the people they meet up with is Love Sausage, and he was part of the glorious, what was it? The glorious 5-year plan. He is literally a communist. Like, literally from Soviet Russia.
Okay.
He's the communist Soviet superhero in the superhero communist team. He loves it. He's all about it. The reason he's called Love Sausage is because you can see the outline of his dick in his pants and it goes down to his knee.
Jesus Christ.
And he was one of my favorite characters in the comic just because he's great and he's like always supportive and he loves everything. He loves Huey and he was kind of like a little bitch. And that's just like his character, nothing wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
And he like gives Huey this drink, and it's like basically just battery acid.
Ugh.
And like Huey drinks it, and he gets like immune to certain poisons as a result. But it's also horrible. Love Sausage is great.
Hey, they can still bring him in. Funny thing is that I have more faith in Garth Ennis writing characters that represent political ideologies than the writers of Korra.
Yeah,
And that
I would.
I think I would probably find this literal Nazi superhero and this literal communist superhero less offensive. Because at least you would portray those things more accurately.
Yeah. Like the literal Nazis, evil and horrible. But they also all are.
They're all evil and horrible.
I'm really excited about the show because one of the big things is I don't know how you feel about Garth Ennis as a writer. I really disliked the comic.
Mm-hmm.
Because he does a lot of shit just stupid.
Yeah.
One of the big plot points in the
That's
show,
a good way of putting it.
In the show and in the comic, is Starlight, who is the good superhero. She's the one that dates the main character.
Mm-hmm.
She is like forced into giving oral sex to the Deep in the show.
To the Deep? Is that another character?
He is the that universe's version of the Aquaman.
Okay.
So she's forced into that situation. That's horrible.
Yeah.
It's obviously terrible. That's in the show. In the comic, she's forced to do that to A-Train, Homelander, and Black Noir all at the same time.
Jesus.
Yeah.
It's always so much more extreme in the comics.
Yeah.
That's just true of comics in general. Like, take Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
So, Marvel movies, blah, blah, blah. I thought the Civil War, Captain America Civil War is pretty good.
Sure.
And that's coming from the comic, which I hate.
Mm-hmm.
I hate the Civil War comic.
I've heard that a lot.
And it's one of the things I hate about it is that it's so idiotically extreme that it just kind of defies belief.
Mm-hmm.
Like the inciting incident in Civil War the movie was the ending of Avengers 2 with that city and all that stuff with Ultron. The inciting incident in the comic series is this like terrorist blowing up a school full of his children. Like horribly violently blowing up this school and killing like hundreds and hundreds of children.
Okay.
And this somehow leads to the superheroes getting banned by the government. And then, like, Iron Man being supportive of the government and, banning the superheroes, that doesn't really make sense to me, but in the comics, this is taken to such an extreme that I just can't comprehend it. Like, he literally creates, like, an interdimensional gulag to keep the superheroes in to contain their powers.
Doesn't he, like, maybe in one of the other ones, doesn't he, like, clone Thor?
I don't know, but, like, you get the idea.
Yeah.
It's like, this goes so far beyond, like, reason. It's comics are weird. Comics are dumb. They're a little bit over the top. And I'm a fan of adaptations that tone down that shit.
So, here's the other element of that part thing.
Mm-hmm.
In the show, the way they deal with her being into that force net situation is that eventually she comes out and she tells everyone the Deep did that to her. She tells it on stage, on live. The whole world supports her. It's a huge thing.
It makes sense.
She tells Huey like early on, and he's like immediately like respectful and understanding of her situation. That like he's horrified she was in that situation in the first place. This is not fucking how they do it in the comic.
What happens in the comic?
So it is important to note the context. The reason that they have cameras, the boys have cameras in the Sevens area.
Yeah, because they're spying on them because they're trying to kill the superheroes.
Mm-hmm. And they have a camera of her doing that to the three heroes, with quotations. Butcher doesn't want Huey to date Starlight. He doesn't want anything to do with soups. He hates all soups pretty much entirely. So his plan to get Huey to stop dating her is to just show him the clip without context at all. So the problem is that like he shows Huey this clip of her blowing 3 guys.
Getting raped.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it. Getting raped. But Huey doesn't know that she's getting raped because he doesn't have that element of context. He just sees that.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, he immediately goes to, like, break up with her and tell her off. But he doesn't ever, like, question anything.
Mm-hmm.
He isn't like, this isn't the girl I know and love. This is a different human. What's going on here? He immediately believes Butcher, who's been manipulating them this entire time, for no reason. And he, like, he tells her off, and then later they like resolve it by him understanding that she didn't want to do that because she tells him. It was really dumb because it was that
He winds up finding out that she was raped after the fact.
They're having a discussion later on because she still loves him, and she's like explaining. They're having that whole conversation where they like dance around the issue, but she never actually tells him until the end.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, he like has a lot of problems with the relationship because he can't envision her, like without seeing her doing that, being raped, and it's like, that's a you problem, dog. Like, fucking deal with it. It was really poorly done, and I hated it a lot because it's like, you can't be this much of a little shit.
It comes off as pretty sexist.
Yeah, very, and it's like. It's hard to hate that much because Huey's just kind of an idiot.
Yeah.
He's just portrayed as a fucking moron the entire time. And I just hated that. I was really happy with how they did in the show because the show was so much better, and that's the general consensus. The show is better than the comic. It just is. It's so much better so far, at least.
So it's like, well, I was going to say it's the opposite of The Watchmen, but I forgot that there is a Watchmen show that people seem to really like.
I didn't even know that.
Oh yeah, I'm not watching it. I'm sure it's good. I know it's not actually a recreation of the comic. It's like a completely different thing in the same universe. Care. I hear it's good, but the Watchmen movie is like fucking terrible.
Yeah, in comparison to the comic.
And funnily enough, it's one of the only examples where the adaptation goes more extreme than the comic, and it's probably just because, you know, the writer-director of the film wildly misinterpreted the message the comic was trying to give, because that's a comic that was very strongly trying to give a particular message.
Yeah, clearly.
I don't know. I could get into a big Watchmen thing, but I don't know if you're interested in that. It's just, I can't help but think about, like, to hear more and more about The Boys, because everybody likes it, I always think about The Watchmen, because I feel like these concepts are so similar. This deconstruction of, like, the superhero tropes and stuff like that.
There is a major difference in that, at least in The Watchmen, there are good superheroes that are continuously good.
They're not, because the thing in The Watchmen is not, you know, power goes to their head, they all become terrible people. It's more of the only people who would willingly become superheroes, because none of them have superpowers, really, but the only kinds of people who would want to do that are weirdos and perverts.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, all of them, just, there's something clearly a bit wrong with them. Mm-hmm. Like, Night Owl, I think, is the great example, because he was the one that they vanilla'd in the movie and tried to make into the most likable protagonist. But in the comic, it's heavily implied for him to just kind of be a sex thing.
Yeah.
Where he can't get it up unless he is being a superhero saving the world, because otherwise he feels like an impotent, powerless human.
Yeah. Anyway. What was I saying?
I'm not sure. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about, the differences between the comic and the show of The Boys?
I wanted to finish my point. You interrupted me my point.
I'm sorry.
I don't remember what my point was, though. I was talking about Huey.
He was an idiot.
He was an idiot. The other thing, there's another big part of it that I wanted to point out. Crap. With Huey, he was this girl. Dang it, man.
I'm sorry. I thought you had a natural break there, which is why I added my thoughts.
Yeah, I usually do have natural breaks, but then you go on for forever.
I'm sorry, okay? I didn't know this was going to happen.
I'm just messing with you. I'm not actually mad. I just can't think of what I was trying to say. There's another big part I wanted to point out. Garth Ennis as a writer. It had a lot to do with him as a writer and what the differences are. Right. Okay. So, in the comic and in the show, Huey's very against murder. He is that character. He is the Batman, but not cool. He just doesn't want to kill anyone. He does it by accident in the comic a couple times. One time he does it intentionally, but even then it's like he didn't want to. He's really remorseful of it. He's like so against murder in every capacity.
I like that.
But the boys aren't.
Yeah, they're bad people.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, the Boys is the name of the group
that
hate the superheroes. Sorry, I keep getting that mixed up.
Here's the problem with the comic. In the comic, they will, like, show Huey being like, I don't want to kill anyone. No, I don't want to murder anyone. I don't want to murder the superheroes, even if they are, evil. And then they compound that with, like, the X-Men version, and the X-Men are called the G-Men in the boys, and this is back when X-Men were huge, so they're the biggest thing in the comic.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, like, a bunch of different things. The whole plot line of the X-Men, or the G-Men, is that the main big guy, like, their Professor X, he's, like, a huge pervert, and he literally, like, he will, like, adopt orphanages and kidnap kids to, like, molest, and then they become the G-Men.
Jesus.
Yeah! It's fucking horrible. That's the kind of people we're dealing with, and Huey, and you're compounding this with Huey going, I don't want to kill anyone. And I don't know, I don't really want to kill anyone either, but I also don't necessarily want child rapists to keep going.
Yeah. And
Like,
that seems to be the message of the author, where it's like, oh yeah, you don't want to kill? Well, what about this literal serial child rapist who uses all of his...
literally thousands.
Yeah, thousands and thousands.
Thousands of children. And, like, he's not even, like, he's, like, the worst one. There are more than one horrible child rapist in the comic. And it's like, you can't compound these two things and then have me give a shit about Huey.
This is a very adult episode of
Apparently.
our podcast. We're going to be demonetized for sure.
We're not monetized.
I know.
They don't monetize us.
Oh, well, hopefully this video doesn't get taken down or something for...
I mean, for talking about it, I don't think so. I think if we, like, showed the comic even, maybe.
Oh, God, no.
But yeah, that's the sort of shit that they do. And in the show, they don't go that far. They really don't. They never get to the point where they bring up children in that fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that, because it's a lot easier to get behind not killing people when they aren't child rapists.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the way the show does it, everything better.
You just like the show better than the comic.
Yeah.
Do you think you would have liked the comic more if you had read it first?
No.
Do you think it's in a comparison, or do you think you probably just would not have watched the show?
I definitely would have watched the show, because I would have hoped that they did everything better. I actually can't tell you if I would like the comic more if I read it first. I don't know if I would have finished it, is the thing.
Yeah.
Because, like, after a certain point, it's like, I don't know if I want to keep going. You know?
It does sound like there are parts of this comic that are straight up obscene.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as you said, Garth Ennis is a very edgy writer.
Supremely. The edgiest of the edge. And that's back before being... Like, that's back when the being edgy, what we consider edgy today, is normal.
Mm-hmm.
It's so weird. There's a couple of differences that are not so horrible that I'll point out for funsies, for people who like the show.
Mm-hmm.
In the comic, Stillwell is a man, and he's the Homelander's handler.
Mm-hmm.
In the comic, he's a man, and he's just, like, the corporate entity. Like, literally, he's the embodiment of corporatism.
Yeah.
He has an assistant that he gets at some point in the comic, and they, like, become a love affair and everything. And she's under this impression that they're going to be, like, in it together. And as the company is, like, falling and going horribly, and everything's, like, being revealed about this horrible, terrible company, he uses her as a scapegoat. And she, like, goes to prison and everything, and he just walks off.
Jeez.
Yeah, he's heartless. In the show, Stillwell is a woman, and they do this thing where, like, she's kind of like a mother to Homelander, because he never had one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really well done.
Oh.
Like, genuinely. Like, the way they make that relationship out to be is so much more interesting. It, like... It really helps you get Homelander's side of things, and also at the same time still makes you understand that he's a fucked up being.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's really excellently done. I loved that change a lot. One really bizarre change, I don't know why they did. It just doesn't actually make sense. It's just sort of like, why not?
Mm-hmm.
There's a character that's like a one-off side character in the comic called Black Nibia, or something like along those lines. She's supposed to be a Storm ripoff.
Okay.
They talk about that character in the first episode of The Boys, and for some reason they make him a man.
There's a lot of gender swapping for, like, no reason.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Well, like, at least Stillwell, they had an actual reason, but for this, it's just like, Why not?
Maybe they felt they had already transformed too many characters into women. They had to do the reverse as well.
Well, he's not even like a real character. He's like literally just talked about, and I only know about it because I recognized him from the comic.
No, I have no idea.
It was just something I found kind of odd. Another big change. Oh, Mother's Milk. In the show, Mother's Milk is a character. He's just a dude named Marcus. I don't remember why they tell you he's named Mother's Milk.
Mm-hmm.
He has an actual reason for that in the show, I think. In the comic, though, his name is Mother's Milk. That's his legal name. He was born with that name.
He was assigned it at birth.
No. Well, yeah, I guess. Sure.
By his parents, or legal guardians.
He was born a soup, and...
Born a what?
A superhero.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant, like...
Soup. The soup.
Like a can of soup. I'm like, wait, he's like a mutant? He, like, came out as a puddle?
No. He was born a superhero, soup,
mm-hmm.
and, the thing is he was really frail, and, like, kind of, he can't do anything unless he was drinking his mom's breast milk. And his superhero, like, ability is that if he drinks his mom's breast milk, he's really powerful.
Is this in the comic or the show?
The comic.
I was gonna say, this is a character I would just remove from the show.
They actually make him my favorite character in the show.
Oh, really?
I know, right?
What's he like in the show?
In the show, he's just like a regular dude, but he's like the best all-arounder. He's really smart. He's the medic. He's strong and big, and he's like a powerful, presence. But at the same time, he's gentle and loving.
Mm-hmm.
It's just great. He has the best motivation. He's the one you can relate to the most. I love him. In the comic, he's kind of the same. It's just he needs to go home every once in a while
And drink his mommy's milk.
Yeah. And that's just his name.
Jesus fucking Christ, Garth.
That's so weird. Frenchie and the female are cool. Frenchie is a French guy.
I got that.
Do you want to guess what female is?
Is she a man?
No.
Oh god, is it a trans woman?
No.
Oh, thank god.
Frenchie and the female, the female is a mute, and she's like a really powerful superhero that's on the boys' team. She's just called the female because she doesn't have a name. Like, she's just literally a Japanese girl that doesn't talk. So
they've boiled her down to her gender, and that's it.
Well, she's more than just that, but it's like...
But not to them and what they refer to her by.
No, but, like, that's just, like, they don't have a name for her, you know? It's not... In the show, like, she has a name. Her name is Kimiko. And I think they probably do it better, obviously, because the show's better. But, the reason they don't really do it that much in the comic is because she just isn't that much of a character because she can't talk.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an element of, like, she's, like, psychotic and she just wants to kill.
Okay.
And they, like, Frenchie's, like, her handler, and she's like, you can't do that, mon ami, and stuff like that. But in the show, it's really cool how they do, like, the relationship between her and Frenchie. I'm trying to think.
There's a lot of characters in the show.
Yeah. Well, like, they do it really well. Like, it's all really well done. I think that's about all I wanted to think about what the difference is. I mean, there's more. There's obviously more. It's just like, what point is too much. I could point out, in the comic, Huey is basically just modeled and entirely is Simon Pegg. Like, he's literally Scottish. And he, like, has...
Is Simon Pegg Scottish? I thought he just had a Scottish accent in Star Trek.
He did a Scottish accent in Star Trek. And I don't think that came out in time for this, but he just happened to be Scottish, and he looks... The comic version looks like Simon Pegg at the time. Mm-hmm. He's got the bald head and the beard, the goatee and everything.
Yeah.
And then in the show, Simon Pegg's Huey's dad.
Oh.
Yeah.
I like it.
That's probably just because, like, it was too late for Simon Pegg to be able to play the character, but yeah, it's pretty cool.
I like Simon Pegg.
Yeah, me too. Huey, I really like Huey's actor. I think does it really well.
Is he the one who was in Star Trek as McCoy?
No, I don't think so.
I know that guy is in The Boys. I don't know which character he plays, though, but I've seen him in trailers.
Star Trek...
You remember the guy who played McCoy in the the newer Star Trek films?
I haven't watched any of the newer Star Trek films.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Then never mind. You probably will recognize him if you watch him, though.
That might be Keith Urban? Okay.
I'm shrugging, I don't know.
In the guy I'm talking about who plays Huey, he's the only thing I know him from is he was in the Catching Fire thing, the Mockingjay, Hunger Games.
Seen that. I haven't seen any of the Hunger Game movies.
He was in some of the Hunger Game movies as one of those characters, and he's someone's son, a famous actor's son. He's like something Grant. I can't remember his name. I'm sorry.
No. This isn't our area of expertise, listeners.
But he does him really well. Like, it's almost worth watching just for him. Even though Huey in the show and in the comic is kind of a little bitch, he's a way more likable as a little bitch.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy him. Some of his motivations are kind of unclear. The Deep. So I told you that the Deep in the show is the one who rapes Starlight.
Yeah.
I was shocked to find out that they, like, kind of make him go through, like, a change. So, what happens in the show is that he does that. She exposes him, quote. And then he is shipped off. He's moved from the 7, and he's shipped off to, like, a no-bunk town in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's forced to go through, like, this insane metamorphosis from being from, like, one of the best to being this shit heel that everyone hates, and everyone, like throws shit at him because they know what he did.
Yeah.
And he's, like, an awful person. And then, like, in the second season, they're starting to get to a point where they want him to, like, become a better person and, like, apologize and do, like, the right thing, quote-unquote.
I mean, I can see this happening if it's done tastefully enough.
I think it is. There's a weird element where, like they're trying... It's kind of weird. In the second season, they're trying to get him to join a church. And one of the ways they do that is they give him shrooms. To make him...
Okay.
To make him, like, understand himself, like,
Who
why...
is they?
It's their version of the Green Arrow. I don't remember his name.
So another hero that is working with him tries to get him to go to church and gives him mushrooms.
Well, not go to church, but become part of a church.
Part of a church and gives him mushrooms to do.
Another person does the same thing, who's like a part of the church more directly. She's not a soup. And they give him mushrooms. And as a result of them giving him mushrooms, his gills, because he has gills, he doesn't have nipples, because he's not technically a mammal, I guess.
Interesting.
Because he's like, the Aquaman. His gills, like, right here on his lower abdomen. They start talking to him.
That must have been a trippy scene.
They were talking to him with Patton Oswalt's voice.
This is very weird. This is a very weird show.
It's good.
I'm imagining any of our listeners who don't know the show, decided not to watch it after I recommended it to them, and are just trying to piece together all this random weird things they're learning about it now. If that doesn't make you want to watch the show, I don't know what will.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe Ben will now.
Probably not.
Yeah. But yeah, they, like, do that, and it was so fucking great. And, like, they talk about, how he's, like, he projects his insecurities onto women, and how, like, he needs to change and become a better person.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of happy with how they were doing it. Like, I think they're doing it well. I'm intrigued to see how it's going to end up in the next few seasons.
Excuse me.
Not seasons, but episodes.
Next episodes, yeah. Watching 3 episodes each week. Do you feel like you're going to be able to do that all right?
Yeah, I'll be fine. I mean, I hope it's 3. I hope they don't go to 1. I'd be pissed. But I'll probably, like, this might be like a 10-pull topic for a while because of that.
I'm fine with that.
I apologize. I'm trying to think of anything else I really liked about the show.
Well...
Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, I do have another thing I can talk about if we've got the time.
Oh, absolutely, we can do that. Let me just say that the other thing I wanted to point out that I really like the show is Butcher. In the comic, Butcher's like I think Butcher's kind of a better character in the comic a little bit to an extent.
Interesting.
But the reason he's a better character is because there's this burn throughout the whole thing where, like, his hatred of soups starts to overcome his love of his team.
Yeah, he just gets worse and worse and worse.
Mm-hmm. As the comic goes on, and it becomes clearer and clearer that his motivation, he's just using the team. He doesn't actually give a shit about them or their lives or anything. All he wants is to kill all the soups. Yeah. And it's become, it's this ramping up thing. The problem is that in the show, they kind of, like, do that too quickly.
Oh, yeah?
Like, he's kind of gets to that point at the end of the first season, and then, like, he's in the second season, and it's like, where's this going? Like, I think they're trying to make it into more of a roller coaster type deal, where it's got its ups and downs.
The problem with a show is that not only does it have to have a greater narrative arc across all the different seasons, it's got to have a narrative arc in each season.
Yeah.
You know? And if they don't want to complete that arc in the first season, they got to complete something, or else it'll just not feel correct.
Complete. Yeah.
And that's just a frustrating way of formatting, but that's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I really recommend The Boys. I really like it. I can understand people's apprehension toward it.
Well, I feel I'm the only person who has any apprehension, and that is because I'm just so tired of any and all superheroes and deconstructions of superheroes and anything relating to the aesthetic of superheroes.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Like, that is why I can see you not being into it. Why I don't, expect you to watch it.
Once I feel like I'm getting back into superheroes, that'll probably be the first thing I watch.
Good, because I do think you'll enjoy it.
That's like one of the reasons I don't even want to watch One Punch Man, you know? Mm-hmm. It's like, I'd give One Punch Man a shot, but I just don't care about superheroes, even if it's the weird Japanese take on superheroes.
One Punch Man was fine.
Yeah, I'm sure it's fine. I'm not going to watch it anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. So, you had one other thing you want to talk about?
Okay, well, I guess technically 3 other things.
Okay.
So, this week, I don't know if it was released this week or if it was released, it was released pretty, a short while ago. The official reviews came out for it, and it's available for streaming everywhere. Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Oh, yeah, I heard about it.
And
I watched the Red Letter Media review.
Oh, yeah? I rewatched Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and then I watched Face the Music all in this week. And I thought I could maybe talk about those.
Sure.
Have you ever seen any of these movies?
I know I've seen the first one. I'm not 100% sure I've seen the second one. I did not watch the most recent one.
Alright. So, the first movie was a bizarrely important film to my family and our childhoods.
Okay.
It's just something that we had on VHS. It was like a TV version of it with some censored out swear words and stuff like that. And we all watched it as kids over and over and over again. And it was something my dad really liked, and we'd all quote the show, or quote the movie to one another and the jokes and stuff. And when my youngest brother Alex, our DM that we mention in every episode, this is the obligatory Alex mention.
Sorry, I had to get his dick out of my mouth.
Well, this isn't going to be talking him up. When he was like a really little kid, he had 2 toys, and he named them Bill and Ted after the film, because it's how much everyone in my family just adored this movie. Also, the toys in question were like a John Smith thing from Disney's Pocahontas, and Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park. Kids are dumb.
Okay.
Kids are fucking stupid, okay? That's not the point. He called them Bill and Ted. In his little toy adventures, they were Bill and Ted. I don't know if they were Bill and Ted of the movie, or he just wanted to use those names. So, anyway, listeners, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is a kind of a weird comedy film. I didn't realize that it was a fairly popular and a successful movie. Mm-hmm. I thought it was just this weird thing that my siblings and I watched as kids, that weird nostalgia kind of trip. It is about these 2 teenagers, 2 high schoolers, who need to pass their history final. And they have a band together, and apparently in the future, their band's music is going to somehow unite the world and bring across world peace and become the foundation of society. But this future might not happen if they fail this history test, and the one gets shipped off to a military boarding school. So, a man from the future in a time-traveling phone box, nothing to do with Doctor Who, it just happens to be a phone booth.
I can actually explain that.
What, the phone booth thing? Well, I saw the Red Letter Media thing as well. It was supposed to be a
car.
A van.
I would also like to point out that man that he's talking about is George Carlin.
George Carlin's pretty good in this film.
One of the best comedians ever.
Anyway, he comes back in time with a phone booth to help them with their history report, and their plan becomes, let's go out throughout history and kidnap famous historical figures, bring them back to the
modern
present day, and have them help us with our report.
Yeah.
And it's a great movie.
Yeah.
It's a very, very, very dumb comedy.
Stupid.
It's really stupid. It's stupid in a good way. The jokes, the main joke of the film is just that these two guys are just really dumb, and they've got a really dumb way of talking, like this, like kind of Southern California, accent and like manner of speech. That everything is excellent or bogus.
Bro, that's amazing.
Whoa, dude.
Whoa.
And rewatching it, it was a fun film. I love it. I highly recommend it. Bogus Journey, on the other hand, this is where things kind of like caught me by surprise. So I did never like this movie when I was a kid. First of all, I didn't know it existed for a really long time. Years and years after the fact, I'm like, wait, they made a sequel to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure? And yes, they call it Bogus Journey.
Did you know they made a show?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't watch the show, so I'm not going to comment on that. I hear it's bad. Anyway, so the plot of the second film is that an evil terrorist dude from the future wants to stop Bill and Ted's band from becoming successful. So he builds Bill and Ted robots, sends them back in time, and the robots kill Bill and Ted. Like, straight up fucking murder them.
Oh, okay.
They are dead, and they meet the Grim Reaper. And after giving him a wedgie and running away, they wind up getting banished to hell. And in hell, they make a deal with death, and they beat him in a bunch of games. And then he brings them back to life after they take a short trip to heaven and meet God and find the space alien who can build good robot versions of them to fight the bad robot versions of them. And at the end, they also have to win the battle of the bands so their band can become successful.
I definitely didn't fucking watch that. I remember that shit.
Holy shit, right? Like, that's the story?
Did you, like it?
Well, I hated it as a kid. Rewatching it now, again, this is a stupid as hell film. This movie is so fucking dumb.
They gave Death a wedgie. You can't expect much highbrow comedy.
Holy shit, though, is it so much funnier now. Oh my god, there's this scene where Keanu Reeves, he's Ted. He possesses his dad, who's like this really mean old cop dude who wants to send Ted off to a military school. Anyway, he possesses him to try to get the police to go find Bill and Ted and the robots. And just this old dude doing this impression of Keanu Reeves being Ted. It's the funniest fucking thing. And their depiction of hell is really funny, too. Like, they have, like, these personal hells they go into, and they, like, turn into kids, and they're re-experiencing, like, these horrifying nightmares that they've had. Like, Bill is afraid, he's, like, at his million-year-old grandmother's birthday party, and she wants to give him a kiss, and she's this really fucking gross old lady. And Ted apparently has nightmares about the Easter Bunny.
Okay.
And this Easter Bunny's really fucking creepy. And Death is hilarious. The Grim Reaper is, like, the funniest fucking character. Because he starts off as this, like, really, really, like, stoic... you know the movie The Seventh Seal?
I've heard of it.
It's a famous movie, listeners. Old black and white. I think it's like a Swedish film or something like that. I also might have gotten the title wrong, so I apologize. Correct me in the comments. I know you won't. You don't read... you don't write comments.
We did get a comment.
Bullshit.
It was spam.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Anyway, so it's about a guy who dies and he challenges the Grim Reaper to a game of chess for his life.
Oh,
that's the version of Death that they depict, and he's basically that until, Bill and Ted give him a wedgie and then challenge him to Battleship, and when he refuses to accept them beating him in Battleship, they play Clue, and when they refuses to accept that he beat him in Clue, they play Twister.
Okay.
And he just becomes like, he basically becomes the Grim Reaper and the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, where he just becomes their best friend by default.
And Jamaican?
And he's not Jamaican, but he does have this weird accent. It's really funny.
That's my favorite part about Billy and Mandy. I love that show.
Also, he joins their band as their bassist.
Great. What? Wait, he's not a violinist. Oh, that'd be the devil.
No, he plays a
that'd be the devil.
A standing bass.
Okay. That was not the joke.
Yeah.
The devil went down to Georgia.
The devil was in this film, but he just gets really angry and puts them in personal hells. Also, the character Missy is the funniest fucking thing. Missy apparently went to the same high school as Bill and Ted. She was a senior when they were like juniors or something like that.
She's dating both their dads.
Well,
or whatever.
She's married to Bill's dad in the first movie, and in the second movie she had divorced Bill's dad, and now she's married to Ted's dad.
Yeah.
Which I didn't think that joke was funny, but in Face the Music, minor spoiler for the beginning of the film, it turns out she's divorced Ted's dad and is getting married to Ted's younger brother. that just culminated it. Alright, so let me talk about
Face the Music.
Face the Music. I liked it a lot.
Really?
I really, really liked it. So, in the same way that I wound up really enjoying Bogus Journey this time watching as an adult and just kind of like not taking it too seriously, the thing about Bogus Journey is that it's such a ridiculous sequel, it almost feels like a parody. Like in the same way like Gremlins 2 is like a parody of all sequels, or even like Die Hard 2 kind of like makes jokes about sequels. But it's not a parody, it's honestly very sincere. It's just ridiculous. It's what you want out of a sincere, ridiculous parody.
Sure.
Well, as I can tell, Face the Music is a lot like that, but it's more like the modern cash grab kind of sequel. You know, like Indiana Jones 4.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You know, it's just a thing that we have to deal with nowadays, is, you know, Hollywood pilfering all those old properties that we remember as kids and trying to revive them and make new versions and new sequels and stuff.
Mulan.
And it's like that. It's so ridiculous that it almost feels like a parody of that concept, but there's this underlying sincerity that I can't help but love.
Appreciate, yeah.
So, like, one thing is, like, the future, as depicted in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, changes completely in Bogus Journey. Like, they don't look at all the same. The one is, like, in this dark cave, and everyone's wearing, like, these black suits and, like, sunglasses, and these dudes are, like, floating. And then in the future of Bogus Journey, it's, like, a very 90s depiction where they're all wearing these, like, weird white and colored outfits and these big shoes, and they go to, like, this brightly colored school. It's like, it just looks nothing alike.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, well, this was the future as depicted at the end of the 80s, and this was a future that people would imagine at the beginning of the 90s. And this one, again, the future is completely fucking different.
And Face the Music.
And Face the Music, thank you. It's, like, completely fucking different, but it's like, oh, this is what the future would be depicted like now, and it's all, like, iPod sleek, and everyone's wearing, like, pure white, and they've got, like, the super advanced technologies and stuff that don't make any sense, and everything's kind of, like, empty, and the old phone booth is just kind of sitting out in the middle of nowhere on display with a hologram of George Carlin explaining what it does. You know, so the plot of Face the Music, and I won't spoil the film, but the basic plot of it is that Bill and Ted find out that, well, they apparently have not united the world yet. Their band became really, really successful, but then it kind of fell off. And I guess there was, like, one song that they were supposed to write that was going to do it and was going to unite the world, but they still haven't written it, and they're trying to write this song. And it's gotten to the point that they've gotten to, like, weird experimental stuff, and nothing seems to work. And then George Carlin's granddaughter comes from the future, and she is played by oh shoot, I forgot the actress's name. She was Mabel in Gravity Falls.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
She's so good. She's hate
great.
that I forgot her name. She's such a great actress.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I don't know her name. I'm sorry. I can tell you other things.
The first thing I saw her in was 30 Rock. She played what's her name.
Yeah.
She's just good in everything she's in. She's just a really, really funny person.
Yeah.
Anyway, she comes from the future because apparently the entire future and reality itself is unraveling because the song hasn't been written, and the whole prophecy of Preston and Logan has not come to pass, and the song hasn't been written, and the world hasn't, come together yet. So the future puts an ultimatum on them to write this song. They're like, you literally have to write this in this amount of time, or else we're going to try to kill you, because there's like a movement that people think that it's actually their deaths that unite the world, and they make like a killer robot to kill them. So their plan becomes to go to the future to find a future version of themselves who already finished a song, and then just take the song back to the past so that they can play the song for them, because they just can't come up with the song.
It was Christian Skull.
Thank you. She is amazing.
So they're trying to figure out the name of the song. And
they're trying to like get the song from their future selves. Except they keep on going into the future, and their future selves still haven't written the song, and they become like these pathetic wretches whose wives divorce them, and their band is unsuccessful, and then they wind up like coming up with schemes where they break into David Grohl's house and impersonate him as like a successful stars, and it's really fucking funny. Oh my god. I should point out the actor who plays Bill.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't been in like anything besides Bill and Ted.
He's literally just been directing. But
man, he comes back and he just nails it perfectly. He's so fucking funny in this movie. Keanu Reeves is fine. Right. I know Keanu Reeves does love and care about this, but it's hard to tell from his facial expressions because he seems to have permanent sad face.
Well, he's had like a difficult life.
Yeah,
then.
I can't blame him. But it's like he just seems to be sad the entire movie.
I think the way they described it in the review, the Red Letter Media review, is that he just isn't that person anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's hard for him to capture that area.
Yeah, he delivers all the lines. He has the inflection. He just can't seem to smile, and it's a little disconcerting. The funniest thing is there's a B plot in the film. A secondary plot. And you learned this from the Red Letter Media reviews, but for our listeners. So Bill and Ted now have 2 daughters.
Yeah.
Billy and Thea. Yep. Named after one another's best friends. And they really want to help their dads write this song. And, growing up as the daughters of, like, the biggest rock stars in the world, they're, like, huge music geeks. Mm-hmm. So they decide they're going to take another time-traveling thing, and they're going to go find famous musicians from history to help them play the song that they eventually write. And holy shit, they're so fucking funny, because they're just carbon copy perfect teenage girl versions of Bill and Ted.
That's what I've heard.
Like, I don't know these actresses, I don't know what else they've been in, but they are the best part of this film to me. They really were the funniest fucking thing. Just seeing them, like, nail it, and just that being sold on it so well. Oh my god.
There's always that weird level of enjoyment you get after you watch someone mimic someone else so perfectly.
Yeah.
It's like, how the fuck?
And it's weird, too, because it's not just like they're doing impressions of Bill and Ted. They feel like their own characters. They feel like the daughters of Bill and Ted. They've got their own interests. They've got their own expressions that aren't necessarily just excellent and bogus and dude and all that stuff. They feel, like, modern.
Sure.
Because that's the thing, Bill and Ted, they feel very old 80s and 90s, and that's just a way of talking that doesn't make any sense anymore. Like, you see them as old adults, and them talking like that just seems a little weird. Because... the people who used to talk like that, they don't talk like that anymore. You don't see old dudes going, whoa, excellent, party on, dude.
Just imagining someone doing that. Imagining Keanu Reeves doing that would be fun. I ruined everything.
I ruined everything. I'm sorry, listeners. I dropped my can.
We're all gonna have to die now.
It's behind the bench.
So, would you recommend...
Oh, God, yes, I'd recommend this film. Watch all 3.
What do you say?
It's definitely a sequel. You need to watch the first 2. There's some contrived bits. There's some dumb parts. The movie's dumb.
How,
I'm gonna emphasize this. The movie is still stupid.
Well, good.
It's the right kind of stupid. It's the right kind of bad sequel. It's the right kind of modern-day cash grab bad sequel, where the actors are too old for the parts they're playing. But it's such a perfect, insane... replication of that.
What did you watch them all on?
I had to rent all of them off Amazon Prime.
Oh, okay.
So they're not on any streaming service for free.
That is slightly upsetting.
Yeah, and I think the rental for the new one, Face the Music, is like $30 or something like that. I mean, it's a brand new film. They're trying to make up for the fact that there's no ticket sales.
I guess, but I wouldn't even pay that much to see it in the theater.
Well, the idea is that if you watch it with 5 people, then each of you would have paid $5.
6 people.
No, if you're 5 other people, then it's 6 total.
Oh, 5 others, okay.
Yeah.
You're right.
I said watch with 5 people.
Well, I interpret it differently.
I understand. Anyway, then yeah, that's fair. If you all go in on it,
I guess,
like you would with a group of friends seeing the movie.
I would rather watch it with you then.
Apparently Mulan is I got a special premium Disney Plus thing that you can pay for, and that's $50 or something really expensive. It's but you can watch it as many times as you like until it comes out in December.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I really want to watch the live-action version of Mulan that's nothing like the original version. Oh, please. Let me watch the version they made specifically to sell in China. Allow me to enjoy that.
Yeah. I'm curious about that movie. I'm not $50 curious. I can wait until December and just watch it if I still have Disney Plus by then.
I don't even want to watch it.
I mean, The Mandalorian's coming out soon, so I guess my Disney Plus subscription will be worth it for that at least.
I mean, I don't know. I still don't have Disney Plus. I just found other ways to watch it.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, I don't really want to watch that.
But I really want to watch Gargoyles.
I will.
And DuckTales.
I will probably watch the Bill and Ted movies because I haven't seen them in a while and it'd be fun.
Yeah.
Probably do that when I get home. Something to do. Maybe tomorrow when I'm cleaning my room. Well, it's been an hour and 45. We should probably be done.
Yeah. We didn't waffle very much. We talked about the 3 things we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, it was impressive. Well, I really wanted to talk about The Boys, and I think you really wanted to talk about Korra.
Yes.
And you still really want to talk about Korra.
Yes, so next week, that's our one promise. I gotta finish talking about Korra, season 3 and 4.
I will make you. Goodbye, listeners. Wait, no. Don't say goodbye yet. I have to do the plugging.
The plugging?
The plugging.
Rundown.
We got a YouTube at Waffle Hour Podcast at youtube.com. We got a Gmail, the Waffle Hour Podcast at gmail.com. We got a Twitter, our Waffle, the time, not the concept. We have a bunch of other streaming services called like Deezer, Pocket Casts, stuff like that you can go on. You can check those out all on our Twitter.
I prefer Spotify, personally.
Spotify is the one I actually forgot. That's the biggest one. And yeah, those are all of those things. Now say goodbye.
Goodbye.
There we go. So, should I watch Korra? Would you think I would like it?
Yeah, I'd recommend